Welcome to polypsych.org. This is your host, Anthony Lindsay.
And Stephanie Moreno.
We're here with Phyllis Alsdurf, who taught at Bethel University in St. Paul, Minnesota. And she has a children's book called Thanksgiving in the Woods. So, Stephanie, you have some questions for her?
Yes. Hello, Phyllis.
Hi, Stephanie.
I'm excited to speak with you today. My first question is, so as we mentioned, you wrote a children's book called Thanksgiving in the Woods, which is based on a real-life annual event in New York. Can you tell us about the event and shed some light on what you captured in your book? I know nothing about New York traditions, so I'm excited.
Okay. Well, I think this is probably not a typical New York tradition, but my brother and sister-in-law have lived in upstate New York for many years, and they have a farm with a historic old house on it. And about 20 years ago, they decided just on a whim to hold Thanksgiving outside in the woods on their farm. And the woods is about a mile from the house and down a ravine, and under this big spread of hemlock trees, they took all the fixings for Thanksgiving down there and had a really fun Thanksgiving. And that thus began a family tradition. And it has grown and expanded. They've always had a very open heart, open home philosophy. And so they've had all kinds of friends, relatives, neighbors, strangers, various people come, and it's grown to be anywhere up to 200 people will show up on Thanksgiving Day to eat Thanksgiving dinner together in the woods on their farm. So they, I think, represent something unique in trying to keep a Thanksgiving celebration fun, rooted in nature, simple, and also inclusive, and a way to, emphasize unity and simple values rather than turning Thanksgiving Day into just another day for, commercialization and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a different twist on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, a lot of holidays, including like Valentine's Day and like Christmas, like they've become like these commercial like staples to the point where like some stores rely on those specific holidays to like bolster their sales for the year. So like Thanksgiving is slowly becoming like just this commercial entity. So the idea of like returning back to, well, not even returning back to the tradition of like family values, like, but to make something new out of it, to take it to the woods, to take Thanksgiving into the woods and try something new. That's kind of cool.
I agree, and I think also it's something that can be adapted in many ways. It doesn't, everybody doesn't necessarily have a woods where they can do this sort of thing, but it might be that you look for ways to bring the outdoors in. I think it's also important to emphasize that Thanksgiving is one of those holidays that is often very difficult for people, and there are many people who aren't with, they're not in kind of this Norman Rockwell scene with, all of the family together, and sometimes it's a lonely, alienating time. So what my brother's family has done is really open up the doors, literally, and they hold it outside regardless of the weather. So there'll be snow at times. They have big tarps they raise up. They have huge bonfires. Lots of musician friends come. There's music and dancing and singing. And this children's book is tied together with the song that everyone sings at the original Thanksgiving in the Woods, which is the Shaker hymn, "'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free," and focusing in on simple gifts and humility and inclusion rather than there's nothing wrong with a traditional Thanksgiving just with family members. That's fun too. But sometimes, people are not with their extended family, and there might be a way that they could open up their homes and their hearts to other people as well.
That's a great point. I mean, when I think Thanksgiving, I go sort of traditional, and I also usually have all of my childhood memories tied in. So really, like, even as an adult, I haven't changed anything that I do. Like, I have three main staples: the Macy's Day Parade, the the Cowboys and Redskins football game, and pumpkin pie. If I have those three things, no matter what else is going on around me, that's Thanksgiving. And
Right.
you know, most years I've been grateful to have all of those happen for me, but a couple of years they don't. And as you said, you know, sometimes people have just different circumstances surrounding Thanksgiving. It might end up a little bit more sad. I'm wondering, how do you relate Thanksgiving to modern children in your book? How do you bring about that holiday?
Well, the book is actually a fictionalized account of the real Thanksgiving event, and it's about a little boy who goes with his family, his parents, to his grandparents' farm to help get ready for Thanksgiving in the woods. So it kind of goes through the activities that lead up to this, because you can imagine with a couple hundred people coming into a woods, there's lots of stuff to get ready and think about. And, you know, they take bales of straw down and hay for the people to sit on. There's big wooden planks to make tables, tarps to raise, wood to cut. But the children also, it's really a great time for kids. And, you know, there's a little stream and the kids are running around in the woods and they can come and go as they please. It's safe. They can eat what they want to eat, and the adults kind of do the same thing. And I should add that, you know, many people come and then they'll leave in the early evening or late afternoon and go to their own homes and have maybe a more traditional, typical extended family Thanksgiving. So it can be seen as a supplement to a regular Thanksgiving meal. But I think the idea of just getting outside and appreciating the simple beauties of nature in the fall is something that could be incorporated into a Thanksgiving feast, no matter where it is, even if it's held inside a home, and always having that ability to open up your heart a little bit and invite one or two people who might be, you know, without a place to go for Thanksgiving. I know at my brother and sister-in-law's event, there are a number of new Americans or recent immigrants who come and bring their own wonderful food contributions to the feast. One year there was a woman who got stranded in the local airport, and over Thanksgiving she couldn't get to her family because of snow, and someone said, "Why, I hear there's this, you know, Thanksgiving event out in the woods. Why don't we go to that?" And she's become a regular attender and really, you know, values that event. So you never know, you might be entertaining angels unaware as you open up your heart over Thanksgiving. So that's kind of the message, and the Shaker hymn, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple," or Simple Gifts, is included in the book. The lyrics and the music, the words are included at the back of the story, and it's kind of the thread that ties the story together as well.
Very cool. That it sounds like a lot of really good values in there for the kids on this holiday. What is your process as a writer, if you don't mind me asking? Because you have another book called It's Milking Time, right?
Yeah, that's my first picture book. You know, I've been in academic setting for a while and haven't really devoted time to writing for children that much, but this is kind of a new shift for me, and I love it. And I have recently retired from teaching journalism and creative writing, and so I think it's a natural extension of a lot of that. Children's books need to be very spare and compact, so journalistic training comes in handy. You can't use any more words than absolutely necessary, and you need to use really vital words that help a child picture an event. And my process, this book has taken about 5 years from start to finish. About 5 years ago, I started thinking, I wonder if there'd be a way to turn this event into a book for kids. I wasn't sure if it would be a picture book or not, and I started by interviewing my nieces and nephews and asking them what they liked about Thanksgiving in the woods and what they would change. And, you know, it's a big weekend and all the cousins are there, and it's just a great time. So I wanted to capture some of that enthusiasm and excitement that kids have for it, and also a little bit of the sense of independence that kids get to experience in this kind of thing, because, they're free to kind of run around and they hold their own Thanksgiving they make a little fort and that sort of thing. So, I've gone through many drafts of the book in order to really whittle it down to, I don't know, fewer than 500 words. I think I started with 5 or 6 times that many words. And, it just goes through many drafts. And then the publisher finds an illustrator, and in this case, they found a wonderful illustrator, a young artist from Norway, and her name is Jenny Lovely, and she's just done a lovely job of illustrating the book and really taking it to the next level. So that's really a fun thing. Children's books are hard to get published. There's so many people who want to get their children's book published, so it's competitive, but it's also an enjoyable audience to be reaching.
So it's interesting as you say that you have to kind of trim your words down, because I've heard the same thing from rappers and comedians and journalists as well, where they all say that you kind of I think the phrase they use is cut the fat. So
yeah.
Yeah, so it's just that, like, comedians will say that, hey, that joke is really good, but it just has to be polished a bit. You just gotta cut the fat from it. And then the perfect joke is one where it's like you can't take one word away. Like, you need every single word for that joke to be the way it is.
Huh.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I mean, I really see picture books in many ways as being poems, because they're poetic in nature. And you think about writing poetry, and you don't have extra words. You really, concision is of utmost importance. So those principles that I've taught to students and I've tried to, incorporate into my other kinds of writing, really come in handy for writing for kids all the more, I think. But you also don't dumb it down, and you include words that are fresh and strong, really strong verbs, maybe fewer adjectives and adverbs, but you have writing that really is strong and easy for a child to capture in their mind's eye.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that lately, but like as I read books to my kids, I've got a 7 and a 10-year-old. They read on 2 different levels, but it's like, it's interesting when I read to either of them, or if they read a book to me that they've chosen, I don't think about the work that goes into reading for a child's mind, like for the child audience. It's adjusting your brain to write to them, but still have it be interesting and not just see spot run.
Right. And I think, the picture books, maybe aim, there's like baby board books and whatnot, but traditionally maybe aim for age 2 to 3 up to even age 8, something like that. And so you want something that has some substance to it, and usually there's some kind of, twist or unexpected little truth or lesson in the book, and it's kind of the takeaway. And the other piece is you want to appeal to parents and grandparents, because they're the ones who are going to be buying the book and also reading it over and over. And so you want it to be something that can cross the generations as well.
Definitely. Yeah, my favorite books are the ones that have like some kind of takeaway from it, like anything, if it's a lesson or just some warm, affectionate thing. Like, that's what I like to read with my kids.
Well, what age are your children again?
They're 7 and 10 when they
7, 10. Yeah. So maybe just at the edge of this book, but I think maybe your 7-year-old might enjoy it too.
It sounds like they both would. I mean, my 10-year-old, he's into chapter books, and that's all well and good. But like when we read together, we usually read something that my 7-year-old can pick up on, and because he's just the youngest, so we like to appeal to him. And Yeah, my 10-year-old gets into books at my 7-year-old's age level too. Especially if they're,
Oh,
like you
yeah,
said, if they capture their imagination, then, it
right.
works for both of them.
Well, an interesting audience for children's picture books has actually turned out to be elderly people. Many people, even with memory loss, children's picture books can be really comforting to them and useful for. So it kind of crosses generations. You might be surprised who would enjoy listening to or having a children's book read to them, and an older person might be among them.
Definitely.
I found with my first book, It's Milking Time, which is focused on a little girl who helps her dad on a dairy farm and with milking. And many middle-aged people would buy the book for their parents because it was reminiscent of a time when they maybe lived on a farm, had relatives on farms, whatever. And so that was an unexpected audience for me to discover in writing children's books.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that either, but that's a great point.
Yeah, as a writer, it's got to be a huge mind shift that you have to go through to switch from writing for yourself and writing for people in your age group and for a specific audience to then switching over to children's books.
It helps to read to kids, and they're very astute, and they'll let you know what they think right away. So that's one way to find out if you're hitting them up.
They don't hold back sometimes. If you had a tip for young writers, what would it be? Should you stick with the field that you have expertise in, or should you venture into something that you're most passionate about? I wouldn't say expertise, but I got my bachelor's degree in psychology, but I personally would like to write a children's book one day, something set in pre-World War II Poland. I kind of like World War II era.
That sounds interesting to
right
me already. I mean, I think probably the answer is do both. But,
okay.
But remember, I mean, the one thing I used to tell my students over and over is life is long, and sometimes the things that for something we want to do, and we're maybe 5 to 10 years ahead of ourselves, and that idea may need to sit and just, in farming there's a term called letting the ground lie fallow, and you just let it lay and it restores itself. It's kind of contrary to contemporary culture where we just feel like we have to produce all the time and do things all the time. Mm-hmm. But it's a good thing to let an idea lie fallow and let it be and let it percolate and see where it goes. Work on it when it happens. My first book, I wrote it and didn't even try to get it published for, I think, 10, 12 years. So it just stayed in a file cabinet, and eventually went onto my computer. But, so take an idea and think about it and nurture it, but don't feel pressure that you have to produce something right away. I think oftentimes in my writing, I just find for writing for kids that I start with something and I think I'm going in one direction, and as I work on something over a long period of time, years, it changes. This book changed dramatically over the 5 years that I worked on it. So, I think it's wonderful for people to bring their areas of expertise, psychology, whatever it might be, and see how you might express that in a new way. And children's literature might be one way for you to do so. So I guess I'm saying, don't give up on those dreams, those passions. They may emerge at a different season in your life, and that's okay. You don't have to feel pressured by that, but just keep tucking things away, maybe literally and figuratively, and wait to see what comes out of that time.
Huh. That's great advice. Thank you. So, where can we find the information on you? Where can we get your books?
I have a website. Let me tell you what my website is. You can find the book at any bookstore, online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I think Target carries it as well.
Awesome.
But I always love to support the independent bookstores or children's bookstores in your area. I'm on Facebook, and also my website is phyllisalsdurf.com. So you can check me out there.
Okay.
And the Thanksgiving displays in your bookstore.
Oh, awesome. So, just to be clear, are you all done teaching writing, or are you gonna dabble in that maybe later on?
Well, I could. I left teaching maybe a little earlier than some might have thought I should, but I felt like I wanted to shift gears, and this was a way for me to do it. And I'm a teacher at heart. I've been teaching for a long time, so it's kind of hard for me not to get involved in teaching in some ways. But for right now, I retired from teaching a year and a half ago, and I'm pretty content doing what I'm doing. But you never know what the future holds. Remember, life is long, so I might have a third act coming. We'll wait and see.
I bet you do. It was I think it's great what you're doing so far, and I wish I could have taken a class of yours. So maybe one day.
Well, maybe I'll have to do something online. Who knows?
Nice. That'd be perfect.
Stranger things have happened.
That would be really cool. All right, cool. So get Thanksgiving in the Woods and It's Milking Time. You can find them on Amazon. That would be probably the easiest way. But again, they're on Target.
Yep.
And they're in pretty much every store that you would search for children's books. But the easiest one, probably Amazon. So go get Thanksgiving in the Woods and It's Milking Time today.
I wouldn't have thought about the going for the older audience. With children's books. We're supposed to do the wrap up.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot. I was already moved on.
Miles away.
Yeah. You said you wouldn't have thought of going for the older audience?
No, how she was saying, elderly people might enjoy the picture books because maybe it could help them kind of remember the words that they're reading and things like that. If a word slips their mind, they can use a picture as a little help and recall. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really cool. If I had a nursing home or anywhere where I care for old people, that would be
children's books, right?
Yeah, I have a giant bookshelf full of them.
Yeah,
on that, right?
Well, I know. I've interacted with some elderly people. I worked with an older person before as a caregiver during the day, and I mean, he didn't read too much, and a lot of that had to do with the only thing available for him to read was like newspapers and the almanac. The newspaper print is too small. It was just frustrating for him. Like, he can read. He's still quite very much there in his faculties. But, like, the print was too small, number one. If he went all magnifying glass on it, like, sometimes he would forget a word and get jumbled and frustrated. You could see it on his face. Like, it's not so much that he's dumber now or that he has the mind of a child. It's just that, things operate a little bit slower when you get to be, he was almost 90. So, he was still working and functioning on a farm, which cracked me up that she mentioned it's milking time for people who used to work on farms, because that's what he used to do. Yeah. So
I know nothing about working on a farm, so like It's Milking Time would be fascinating just to read to the children, so I can see where she's coming from.
He would, when I talked to him, he had all kinds of stories about his childhood working on the farm. So I don't know, I like these children's books that get carefully written. She said 5 or 6 drafts in order to make it down to 500 words or less. She said she started out with 5 to 6 times that many words when she started. Wow. Then she had to break the book down to 500 words or less.
That's gotta be brutal, because every writer has that thing where it's like you don't want to throw out your work. Like everything you have is like it's
golden.
Yeah, you really you poured yourself into that, and to just chuck it, to leave it on the cutting room floor is just brutal. So that cutting room floor, that comes from this idea of like directors they'd record a bunch of stuff and then they go to essentially cut it down to this 2-hour film, and a lot of really cool scenes get left on. A lot of really cool scenes get left on the quote unquote cutting room floor. So which is why Batman vs Superman sucks so bad.
And that floor is flooded. Or was it not? It was not. Maybe it should have been. Old 3-hour long movie.
Yeah, maybe. I'm really looking forward to this. So Thanksgiving in the Woods and It's Milking Time.
Seems like a very cool concept too.
Yeah.
The actual
grab it before Thanksgiving, and then grab a Thanksgiving in the Woods before Thanksgiving, and it's milking time, like before Christmas. Well, both of them at the same time. It's not like they're $97 a piece.
Get some books.
Oh, miser. Later. Oh, go to polypsych.org and register for a profile so that we can interview you. You go to polypsych.org. It's a free thing. You just put in your email address and your name, and then we contact you via email. Say, hey, when are you ready for a one-on-one interview?
Yeah.
And
We'll
you're like, I'll do
it.
it next week. And it's all right, sweet. And then we interview you, and we talk about your love for trash cans or something strange. Whatever you're really, really into, we'd love to talk to you about it. Later.
All right. Bye.